An engineer tries to assert her authority until the wrong woman shows up and watches everything she does. What will happen when the truth comes out in front of the entire crew? Let us know in the comments section below. It began with a voice, cutting, firm, and just a little too loud. "Hey, you can't just walk through here like that." Courtney Hale's boots clicked sharply on the metal grating as she stormed across the temporary scaffolding, her safety vest whipped in the wind like a warning flag. She pointed a gloved finger toward a woman near the north perimeter of the site, a figure she didn't recognize, standing calmly beside the freshly poured foundation. The woman was dressed in clean but modest workwear. Dark jeans, a fitted utility jacket, steel-tube boots. Not a speck of dust on her. She wore a simple black baseball cap pulled low over her forehead. But her posture spoke volumes. Upright. Still. Observing. Courtney narrowed her eyes. She hated that. The watching. "You got clearance to be here?" Courtney barked, now just feet away. "This isn't a public tour. It's an active zone. Who are you with?" The woman raised her gaze, slow and deliberate. Brown eyes met blue ones, calm against the heat. "I'm just here to take a look. I won't get in the way," she said. Courtney folded her arms. "That's not how this works. OSHA doesn't care if you're just looking. If you don't have a visitor badge or a crew assignment, you're trespassing." Still, the woman didn't move. She glanced toward the towering crane, the workers in neon vests moving like ants along the skeleton of the rising structure. Courtney noticed then, this wasn't casual interest. The woman's eyes tracked rebar tensioning and weight distributions with the kind of understanding that didn't come from a brochure. "Name," Courtney snapped. "I want your name, and I want to know who sent you." The woman offered a hand, oddly polite for the tension in the air. Sophia Burton." Courtney didn't take the hand. "Okay, Sophia. Last name doesn't matter to me unless it's printed on your badge or your boots are in the schedule." A younger worker nearby, Jalen, paused to glance in their direction, then quickly busied himself. He'd seen Courtney like this before, the way she policed the site like it was hers alone, correcting everyone from foremen to electricians if she thought they were even a few inches out of line. Sophia lowered her hand slowly and gave a faint nod. She turned to walk toward the central trailer, the main site hub. Courtney followed. "You can't just waltz into the command trailer either," she warned. "It's for management and supervisors only. Are you hard of hearing or just that entitled?" Sophia didn't answer. She walked with that same deliberate grace, like someone who'd been on many job sites but had nothing to prove. At the door, she paused and turned slightly. "You mind opening it for me?" she asked. "You've got the key card." Courtney stiffened. "You think I'm going to let you into the control center? You're lucky I don't call security or the cops." Sophia smiled. Not wide, not mocking, just tired. As if she'd heard that threat before. Too many times. Behind them, the gravel crunched. Walt, the aging foreman with salt and pepper stubble and a permanent squint, stepped up beside them. "Courtney," he muttered, jerking his chin toward Sophia, "you might want to ease off a bit." Courtney turned, surprised. "What? She's not on the log. She's not even wearing a vest." "She doesn't need one," Walt said simply. "Lead the hell not." Walt scratched his chin, looking between the two women. "You really don't know who that is?" Courtney's face darkened. "What, is she one of your friends from the union hall? This ain't a social hour." "I'm the one who brought her here," Walt said, not unkindly but with enough steel to quiet Courtney for a beat. "Thought she should see the site for herself before tomorrow's walkthrough." Courtney blinked. "Tomorrow's walkthrough is for corporate." "Exactly." Sophia turned the doorknob herself, unlocked, and stepped into the trailer like she'd been there 100 times before. Because she had. Just not this one. Courtney stayed outside, her pride scraped raw. Inside, Sophia removed her cap, revealing a head of soft curls pulled back into a neat twist. She moved through the trailer like she already knew the layout. Blueprints on one wall, timesheets pinned beside them. A whiteboard listed upcoming inspection deadlines in red dry erase ink. She read it all, fast but methodically. Her fingers touched nothing, but her mind touched everything. Jalen stood just outside the trailer, gripping a rebar rod with a little too much tension. He'd seen it all, heard every word, and something in him stirred. Sophia wasn't afraid. That was new. Across the lot, Courtney stared at the ground, jaw clenched. Her authority had been challenged, and worse, it had happened in front of the crew. She turned and stomped back toward her temporary office, yanking the door shut behind her with a satisfying thud. Inside, she dropped her hard hat on the desk and stared at the job schedule on her monitor. Her eyes moved, but her brain didn't follow. Sophia Burton. Where had she heard that name before? She clicked open the email from corporate, one she had ignored in her morning rush. Subject: confidential site visit. Project Sunrise. Below it, in plain font, please ensure all safety protocols are up to date. Ms. Sophia Burton, our new CEO, will be arriving for an unannounced walkthrough sometime this week. Courtney stared at the screen, and her mouth slowly dropped open. But outside, Sophia had already moved on, greeting workers by name and asking questions about load-bearing structures and material supply chains. She listened, she asked, she learned, not as a boss, as a builder. And the crew? They responded, not because of her title, but because of how she looked them in the eye and saw them. The office door creaked as Courtney leaned her weight into it, closing out the low rumble of engines and the clinking of metal outside. She pressed her back to the door for a second longer than she meant to, eyes fixed on the screen that still bore the name. Sophia Burton, the CEO. Her throat tightened. Not manager, not investor, not consultant. The CEO. Courtney exhaled sharply through her nose and shoved herself off the door. She sat down hard in her chair, the cheap plastic frame groaning under her weight as if protesting the tension coiled in her body. She clicked out of the email, scanned her recent inbox, and saw it again, her name at the bottom of a memo from 2 weeks ago. She had seen the alert, marked it unread, filed it away under corporate nonsense. No picture had been attached, no title emphasized, just a quiet announcement. A change at the top. She rubbed her temples, trying to calm her racing thoughts. The image of Sophia's face, calm and patient under pressure, kept flashing in her mind. That calm hadn't been casual. It had been earned. Courtney muttered under her breath, "This can't be real." But it was. Outside, the site bustled, as it always did, but Courtney felt a shift. Not in the ground, but in the air. Like something had snapped inside her perimeter, and now the walls weren't holding. Meanwhile, Sophia walked the perimeter of the east section, listening as Walt explained the sequencing. "Concrete's about a day behind schedule here, but we can make it up if the forecast holds and we double pour in Zone B." Sophia nodded. "You've got the steel shipment due Friday, right?" Walt raised an eyebrow. "Yeah. How'd you?" "Checked your logs, looked at your procurement chart." She smiled softly. "Your team's doing solid work." Walt chuckled. "You talk like you've been on our side of the wall." "I have," Sophia said simply. That answer carried weight. Walt didn't press. Jalen, standing nearby with a coil of wire slung over one shoulder, stepped forward. "Excuse me, ma'am?" Sophia turned to him. "Sophia's fine. Right. I just, heard you talking earlier. You knew about the epoxy mix for the retaining wall." "I did." Jalen scratched the back of his neck. "Courtney said nobody up top even noticed that part of the spec. Said it was just something she added last minute." Sophia smiled faintly. She was right to add it, but she didn't invent the issue. just fixed a problem that should have been caught in the original blueprint. Jalen's brows lifted, impressed. You read the original blueprints? Sophia gave him a half shrug, like it wasn't anything special. I signed off on them. Jalen blinked, then nodded, then smiled. It wasn't wide, but it was real. Back in the trailer, Courtney poured stale coffee into a ceramic mug with a chipped rim and stared at it like it held answers. She heard a knock at the door, short, even, no hesitation. Walt stepped in. She's making rounds, talking to the crew. Thought you'd want to know. Courtney didn't look up. Thanks. Walt lingered. You should come back out. Let the team see you working with her. Courtney's jaw flexed. You think I should just walk out there, pretend nothing happened, like she didn't let me chew her out in front of everyone? She didn't let you, Walt said carefully. You did. Courtney stood slowly, mug still in hand. You know what pisses me off, Walt? He tilted his head. Plenty of guesses. Dean could have stopped me at any second. Told me who she was. Pulled rank. Yeah, Walt said, but she didn't. Courtney slammed the mug onto the table, some coffee sloshing out onto her desk. Exactly. Outside, Sophia stood with the crew, not above them, not away from them. She asked about the scaffolding ratios, why Zone A had been reflagged for structural reinforcements, and which vendor had botched the piping contract last quarter. She knew names, she knew numbers. And that was what unsettled Courtney the most when she finally stepped back outside and saw it. It wasn't just that Sophia had power, it was that she knew how this whole machine ran. Courtney walked over slowly, every step feeling heavier than it should. Jalen saw her coming and stiffened slightly, but said nothing. Walt gave a quiet nod and stepped aside. Courtney stopped just beside Sophia. She folded her arms. Not defensive, just collected. Didn't recognize you, she said, low. Sophia didn't miss a beat. I figured. You let me dress you down in front of everyone. I let you speak. That's different. Courtney looked around, noticing how the team had casually shifted farther away, but still within earshot. You could have embarrassed me, blown everything up. Sophia turned to her, finally meeting her eyes again. That's not leadership. That's revenge. Courtney's mouth opened, then closed. She looked away. Sophia stepped a little closer, lowering her voice. I don't need to humiliate you to get respect, but I will hold you accountable. That starts today. Courtney swallowed. Understood. Sophia's tone didn't change. You've got strong knowledge, your crew respects you, but you lead from fear. That's how I survived in this industry, Courtney said, eyes narrowing. Sophia didn't flinch. So did I. But survival isn't the same as building something worth standing on. They stood there a moment longer, a strange quiet falling between them. Then Sophia turned, gesturing toward Jalen. Can you walk me through the lift schedule? Jalen lit up. Yes, ma'am. Sophia. Courtney stepped back, watching them go, watching how easily Sophia shifted authority without arrogance, power without cruelty. And deep down, something cracked. Not from shame, from recognition. The crew had responded to Sophia not because of her title, but because of her presence. Courtney had been chasing control. Sophia had earned command. And now, the entire site was beginning to feel that difference. The next morning, the air around the site buzzed, not with jackhammers or forklifts, but with whispers. Crews showed up early. People who usually dragged their boots in were already geared up, glancing toward the trailers. Word had spread. About her. Sophia Burton. Nobody was saying it loud. Nobody dared. But the way workers looked at her now had changed. She hadn't just been the woman Courtney snapped at yesterday. She was the one who didn't flinch, didn't yell, didn't demand to be treated with reverence, and yet still had everyone's attention. Jalen carried a roll of marked-up blueprints under one arm as he made his way toward the main site trailer. He passed by two welders who lowered their voices mid-sentence. One of them leaned in and said, "Did you see how she talked to Courtney? Not down, just direct." Jalen didn't join the conversation. He just smiled to himself. Inside the trailer, Sophia was already at the main table. The folding chair she sat in looked too small for her presence. She was flipping through safety reports while sipping black coffee from a paper cup that had Walt scribbled on the side in fading Sharpie. Walt entered behind Jalen. "You stole my coffee," he said flatly. Sophia raised the cup. "Finders keepers." Walt grunted, but the corners of his mouth twitched. Courtney walked in next. No dramatic entrance, no muttered curse under her breath, just her clipboard clutched tightly against her ribs. She looked at Sophia, then at Walt. "Good morning," she said. Sophia looked up. "Good morning." Jalen stood awkwardly, waiting for someone to break the tension. Walt clapped his hands. "All right, we've got 20 minutes before the safety meeting. Let's do a quick rundown on the West Slab pour schedule." They worked. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Courtney kept her tone neutral, gave clear updates, didn't interrupt. Sophia asked smart questions. Jalen answered confidently. Walt chimed in only when needed. For the first time in weeks, it felt like a team. By 9:00 IEM, the entire workforce had gathered under the canopy tent near the east wing of the site. Mandatory safety meetings were usually stiff, half-listened to, and filled with people checking their phones behind clipboards. Not today. Courtney stood at the front. She had her hard hat tucked under one arm, sunglasses on her head. She cleared her throat, then scanned the crowd. "We're going to be updating our lifting procedures for the next 10 days, she began. "The East Stack is under reassessment due to tension errors caught in yesterday's sweep." Sophia's presence beside her changed the entire dynamic. She stood with her arms loosely at her sides, not taking over, not even speaking yet. But everyone knew why she was there. Courtney continued, "Also, I want to take a moment to address something that happened yesterday." A murmur rolled through the crowd. Courtney raised her voice slightly. "I want to be clear. I spoke to someone I didn't recognize. I didn't ask who she was. I made assumptions, and I let my position get in the way of my professionalism." It was quiet now. Not awkward. Just quiet. Sophia didn't move. She just waited. Courtney swallowed. That someone was Sophia Burton. She's not a consultant. She's not an auditor. She's the CEO of this company. Heads turned. A few jaws dropped. Courtney looked down, then back up. And she saw this site before it was concrete and cranes. She helped design what you're standing on. Sophia finally stepped forward. "I'm not here to scold anyone," she said. "I'm not here to catch people messing up or looking busy. I'm here because this company is nothing without the people who build it. Literally. Every beam, every bolt, every overlooked floor plan detail. You do the work, and too often, you're treated like you don't matter." Nobody moved. Jalen felt something tighten in his chest. Sophia's voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. The kind of leadership that pretends to know everything, that doesn't ask questions, that punishes people for not fitting the mold, that's not leadership. That's insecurity with a title. Courtney lowered her gaze, but didn't walk away. Sophia scanned the crowd. "I see a lot of good people out here. Skilled workers, sharp minds, people who care about doing it right. I didn't get here because I'm lucky. I got here because people told me I couldn't. And I made sure they were wrong." The air crackled with tension. But it was the good kind. The kind that comes right before something changes. "I'll be here for the rest of the week," Sophia continued. "Not to observe, to learn. From you. My office may be in a high-rise, but my roots are here. In the steel, the sweat, the mistakes, and the things we fixed together." She stepped back. "Thank you for letting me walk with you. Let's build something better, starting now. The silence broke not with applause, but with heads nodding. People nudging each other. A few clapped slowly, but most didn't need to. The message had landed. As the crew dispersed, Jalen stayed behind. Courtney turned toward Sophia, unsure of what to say. "I deserved to be fired yesterday," she muttered. Sophia looked at her for a long moment. "Maybe. But firing you wouldn't teach you anything, and it wouldn't help the team." Courtney looked surprised. "Then why didn't you?" "Because I'm not here to punish people," Sophia said. "I'm here to rebuild the way we lead." Jalen stood a few feet away, listening, quietly absorbing. Courtney slowly nodded. "I want to do better." Sophia didn't smile. "Not yet. Then start today." She turned and walked back toward the trailers. The workers moved aside for her. Not because they had to. Jalen looked at Courtney. "You okay?" Courtney let out a long breath. "Ask me tomorrow." And behind them the site roared back to life. But it sounded different now. Not louder, just clearer. By Thursday afternoon, the sun cast long shadows across the site, stretching over concrete slabs and steel beams like a slow-moving spotlight. What had once been a high-tension environment felt surprisingly calm now. Focused, productive. Sophia stood on the catwalk above the west end, arms folded across her chest, surveying the project she had once only seen in renderings. Below her, Courtney was talking through a revised schedule with Jalen and two other junior engineers. There was no barking, no snapping. She was explaining, asking questions, even listening when Jalen suggested a modification to reduce the rework needed on support braces. She nodded, gave a clipped smile, and said, "Make it part of the update. Good catch." Sophia had noticed the change, not just in Courtney, but in everyone. There was less second-guessing, less walking on eggshells. The crew cracked more jokes now, but they also worked with a kind of synchronized rhythm. For the first time in a while, it felt like the site belonged to all of them. As she descended the stairs from the catwalk, Walt caught up with her. "Had to call in an extra delivery for that insulation mix. Vendor didn't hit the numbers." Sophia nodded. "You caught it before install?" "Barely. But yeah." "Good," she said. "That's why you're still my guy." Walt smirked, wiping dust from his gloves. "You sticking around tomorrow for the state rep tour?" Sophia hesitated. "Wasn't planning on it. Figured I'd let Courtney and the team lead it." Walt raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that?" "I'm not the story anymore, Walt," she said. "They are." He didn't argue. Later that day, while reviewing site changes in the trailer, Sophia felt a knock, not on the door, but in her chest. A light but persistent feeling that someone was watching. She looked up and saw Courtney standing just outside the window, holding two mugs. Real ceramic ones. She tapped the glass lightly and tilted her head. Sophia motioned her in. Courtney stepped inside and offered her one of the mugs. "I made it myself," she said. "No theft involved this time." Sophia took it, raised it like a toast. "Progress." They stood in silence for a few beats. "I wanted to thank you," Courtney said. "Not just for not firing me, but for everything since." Sophia took a sip. "What changed your mind?" Courtney breathed out through her nose, steady but quiet. "I realized I was managing out of fear. I thought if I didn't assert myself constantly, no one would take me seriously, especially not men. Especially not people who didn't think I deserved to be here." Sophia didn't interrupt. "I thought if I was tough enough, loud enough, I could outrun that feeling. But when you showed up, all calm and confident and quiet, I saw what it really looked like. Power that doesn't need to shout." Sophia let that hang in the air. "Fear's a hell of a fuel source, burns fast, but it doesn't last." Courtney nodded slowly. "I don't want to burn out. I want to build." Sophia smiled now, full and real. "Then you're already on your way." Just then, Jalen knocked and peeked inside. "Hey, sorry to interrupt, we've got the new rig in place. You'll want to see it." Courtney looked at Sophia. "You coming?" Sophia shook her head. "This is your moment, go." As Courtney stepped out with Jalen, Sophia walked to the edge of the trailer door and leaned against the frame, watching them go. Courtney's shoulders looked lighter. Jalen was laughing about something, and the team, they were watching too, not with suspicion, but with a kind of respect that couldn't be demanded. It had to be earned. Sophia stepped back inside and pulled out her laptop. She typed a few final notes for her report, paused, then added one last line. "Leadership is about what you lift, not what you weigh down." That evening, as the workday wound down, Walt called for an early wrap. He claimed the team needed the last hour to clean up, but the rumor was out. Sophia was leaving after today, and she wasn't going quietly. Near the southeast gate, someone had set up a folding table with a red tablecloth. On it sat a sheet cake from a local bakery. In shaky icing it read, "Thank you, Ms. Burton. You made us better." Sophia chuckled softly when she saw it. "I told them it was cheesy," Jalen said beside her, scratching his head, "but also kind of perfect." She turned to him. "Thank you for stepping up this week. Your voice matters." He nodded, eyes wide with pride. "You made me believe that." Walt handed Sophia a plastic fork and nodded toward the cake. "We figured the least we could do was send you off with sugar." Courtney appeared with a smile. It was Jalen's idea. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "That's so." Jalen grinned. "And I picked the flavor. Red velvet. Always said it was the most underrated." Sophia took a bite and nodded. "You're not wrong." As the crew gathered, laughter echoing through the site, the setting sun dipped behind the steel frame of what would soon be a mixed-use community center. Families would one day walk those hallways. Kids would run across those tiles. And none of them would know what happened here, but it would be built into the bones of the building. Sophia said her goodbyes with hugs, firm handshakes, and long glances that said more than words ever could. When she finally stepped into the SUV that waited near the lot, she paused, looking back one last time. Courtney stood at the edge of the group, hands in her pockets, eyes soft. Sophia raised a hand. Courtney raised hers, too. And just like that, the engine started. The tires turned over gravel, and the CEO, who had once arrived unknown, disappeared down the road as quietly as she came. But everything she left behind, it would last, because sometimes the real foundation isn't poured in concrete. It's poured in people, and this time it was solid.